People are here on Earth for a certain amount of time, and Jennifer's were only 8 years. It was like any other day in Jennifer's life. Helping at the laundromat was her favorite thing to do. A good way to spend time with her busy mum. Laughing at silly things and discussing her vacation plans for the summer. Little did Jennifer know that this would be her last day in this world. This case, as it currently stands, remains unsolved. Despite several serious investigations into the murder, nobody knows the real identity of the criminal who stabbed an 8-year-old girl who had dreams bigger than her own life. On a Monday night at the laundromat, Jennifer would be killed in cold blood by a teenage boy who ran away from the scene, never to be found again. On June 6, 1988, the mother-daughter duo walked towards the nearest laundromat called Westrock Coin-Up Wash and Dry, with bucket loads of laundry in their hands. The place was right across the street from their home in San Antonio, Texas. Beside the laundromat, there was a convenience store and a beauty salon on the same side of the street, all of which were closed that night, while Jennifer's father, Rogelio Delgado, stayed home and took care of the other kids. Jennifer and her mother walked towards the place to do their favorite task together. Jennifer's mother, Melida Delgado, put the clothes in the washing machine. Jennifer stood beside her and talked to her about her plans for vacations. She wanted to stay with her grandma for a while, who lived in Cotala, Texas. As a young girl who exuded warmth and innocence, Jennifer loved spending time in her grandmother's home. Her eyes shone brightly as she talked about her plans for the upcoming summer holidays, not knowing the calamity that would hit her minutes later. Melida put the clothes aside and listened to her daughter's never-ending to-do list of what she wanted to achieve that summer. It was a time when gang violence in Texas was at its utmost peak. Even though San Antonio is unique in its culture and history, its crime rate is no different from the other cities in Texas. As the violent gangs disrupted the peace and harmony of the citizens, Jennifer's family would soon come under the category of the victims of such violence. The most baffling murder where the victim did not even know the killer. Jennifer's case would soon turn cold due to lack of media coverage and lack of strong witnesses. As the mother and daughter sat on a bench near the vending machine and waited for their laundry to get done, around 8 p.m., a teenage boy entered the place. The boy walked straight to the restroom and came out minutes later, heading towards the vending machine. This boy did not look over to the bench where Melida and Jennifer sat. He put some coins in the vending machine, but the vending machine was broken. The boy kicked the vending machine and grew angrier, and his kicks became more violent. Suddenly, he turned towards Melida, took out a knife from his pocket and stabbed her in the shoulder. Caught by surprise, Melida began screaming. Jennifer ran out of the laundromat to get her father as her mother yelled for help. As she ran out of the door, the boy lunged at her and stabbed her in the stomach, killing her right on the spot. The adrenaline rush inside Melida's body was running high. She continued to scream as she picked up her dead daughter and ran out onto the street. The boy had already escaped the scene. Later, Melida would tell the authorities that the boy ran outside the laundromat and jumped in a silver car which took off quickly. The neighbors saw the car speeding away from the street. Little did they know, one man had stabbed a little girl to death. Melida picked up her daughter and ran toward her home. As her adrenaline wore off, she began to realize that both of them were bleeding heavily. Melida's blood pressure dropped as she lay down in the front of her home, calling for help. Luckily for her, her husband heard the screaming and came out of the house. Not knowing that it would be his own wife and daughter, Rogelio called 911 and tried to calm his wife down while his daughter lay unconscious on the ground in a pool of her own blood. At Wilford Hall Air Force Medical Center, Melida lay in the hospital bed in critical condition, but shortly the doctors were able to stabilize her, thankfully. Jennifer, on the other hand, was pronounced dead at 11 p.m. The poor girl could not survive the severe blows to her stomach. Despite urgent measures taken by the doctors, Jennifer lost her life that night on June 6, 1988. After Melida was in stable condition, investigators involved in the case interviewed her about the crime. Melida had little to tell. She claimed to have never seen a boy like him ever before. Melida revealed to the officer that she didn't notice him in the laundromat until he kicked the vending machine with all his might and shouted angrily as he hit and punched the machine. She then saw him coming towards them but did not know he had a knife. Quickly taking it out of his pocket, he attacked Melida, who had no idea what she did wrong. Later, the investigators were able to draw a sketch of the murderer based on how Melida described the boy. A white boy nearly 17 or 18 with shoulder-length dark curly hair and a slender build. He was was clean-shaven at the time, wearing a white flower Hawaiian-style shirt that had some of its buttons open that night. Melita was able to tell these details after an investigator decided to get her hypnotized to extract more information from her. As she described the boy in detail, a police sketch artist was brought in. Now, there was a sketch of the murderer. The police department of San Antonio Police Station launched an investigation. After the sketch was created, the San Antonio Police Department released it to the press, hoping to find enough tips for the case to catch the criminal. Shortly after the composite sketch of the murderer was released, the police department received tons of tips each day. While all of this was happening, the police inspected the laundromat and unlocked the vending machine, hoping to find coins with fingerprints of the criminal. Eventually, the investigators had over 100 tips for the case, out of which 17 were shortlisted as people of interest. The police interrogated all 17 of the suspects and further shortlisted 3 people. However, all 3 of the suspects had strong alibis at the time of the murder, so the police had to eventually give up on these remaining suspects. Although every tip from the public was thoroughly investigated by law enforcement, none proved to be useful for Jennifer's case. At Westwood Terrace Elementary School, the Parent-Teacher Association decided to try one last time for the sake of Jennifer. In October 1988, the association announced a reward for people who helped in identifying and providing information about the criminal leading to an arrest, hoping the reward would help the police gain some new leads. The association released the announcement to the press. Once again, several tips were called in, but there was a lack of strong evidence that would lead the police to eventually give up on all of the suspects. On the other hand, the police were unsuccessful in finding the criminal through the fingerprints on the coins and the vending machine. Investigators talked to neighbors who were present near the laundromat on the night of the murder. Some claimed to have seen a man jumping in a silver Honda and driving 90 degrees north. Others also recall seeing a silver Honda speeding out of the town, but no one noticed the number plate or the boy who was driving the car. They had no idea what had happened that night. Jennifer's case remained open for a long time. Investigators would often reopen Jennifer's case, hoping to solve the murder case and review anything that had been missed during the investigations. The local newspapers also routinely released articles on the randomness of the killing of Jennifer, reminding the public that her case remains unsolved years later. After these articles were published, the police once again received several tips of the identity of the killer. However, none proved to be helpful in solving the case of Jennifer Sue Delgado. Jennifer remains a memory years later. 34 years later, Christopher Palmer, a classmate of Jennifer at elementary school, came out to honor the deceased with other classmates. He didn't realize the intensity of the crime until years later when he made a family of his own. Talking to the press, Palmer said he cannot imagine the same happening to his daughter. Palmer also released some details about how Jennifer mingled with her friends at school. He showed the press a card that Jennifer gave him on Valentine's Day. The card read, "You're my #1 Valentine." The sign, Jennifer Sue Delgado Way, is installed on the side of the street right where the laundromat used to be. Christopher and Jennifer's other classmates helped raise funds to put the sign up in San Antonio. It is their way to honor their deceased classmate. Her death left all of them traumatized forever, and they want to remember her in the best possible way. Christopher later founded a Jennifer Sue Delgado Memorial Fund. He aims to give something of value to the community by honoring his beloved friend. The fund raises college scholarships for underprivileged students. Christopher is hopeful that one day, Jennifer's assassin will be caught and arrested. Until then, he'll work hard to bring Jennifer's case into the spotlight so that the people never forget what happened to that innocent little soul who just wanted to do laundry with her mother. Even though Jennifer's case went cold, the police department of San Antonio is still accepting tips on her killer all this time later. All of the previous leads have been exhausted, but there is still hope that her murderer will be caught one day. Jennifer, who had big plans for her summer vacation all that time ago, was stabbed brutally by an 18-year-old boy who was never seen in the area again.